Let me ask all of you, prior to the shootings in Newtown, show of hands, how many of you had heard of Newtown, Connecticut? I see maybe 5 or 6 hands. How many of you have heard of Newtown because of the shootings at the school in my town? Everyone has raised a hand. And I would venture to guess that if I asked the same question to people in the entire country and around the world, you'd have the same representation. Everybody has heard of Newtown because of the shootings that occurred in my town. So I would guess that we would fall within the definition of a hotspot community. Since Newtown, and this is an outdated slide, there have been 91 school shootings. If you put dots on the map for the movie theater in Aurora, for the Naval Yard, Virginia Tech, you added a dot for Virginia Tech, for Tucson, for Columbine. If you added dots on the map for communities that suffered deaths because of negligence with guns, happens every day. You have more dots on that map. If you added dots for suicides, you have more dots on that map. If you added a dot for the urban environments, for Connecticut, Hartford, New Haven, for New York City, for the communities within New York City, Washington, D.C., Chicago, where my cousin was shot 2 months ago and fortunately is going to recover, Oakland, Los Angeles. What happens to the map? There are dots everywhere. So are we talking about a hotspot community, or are we talking about a hotspot nation? It's amazing to me the work that all of you do on a daily basis. What happened in Newtown was one horrific day, but I am all too aware that what happens in your communities happens every day, and the impacts are felt widespread. Following the shootings in my town could have easily just turned in and just healed by ourselves. But I'm so proud of our community because we have reached out and went to work to try to make a difference, to lend our voice to the dialogue so that we could come to a place where this country does not know the levels of gun violence that exist today. I remember a couple months after the shootings in Newtown, I attended a rally in Hartford as Connecticut was working to pass the gun violence laws that we did end up passing. And I was speaking on a panel right after a gentleman by the name of Pastor Sam Saylor. Pastor Saylor had been working in inner city Hartford for years on gun violence prevention, and unknown to me and to many people, about 2 months before the shooting in Newtown, he lost his son to a shooting at a gas station in Hartford. And he spoke and he started going off about, I hate Newtown. I am sick and tired of Newtown. Newtown gets all the money, Newtown gets all the media attention, et cetera, et cetera. And he was right. And then he said, and I'll never forget this, he said, and then Vice President Biden came to Danbury, and I was sitting next to a father who lost his son in Newtown. And when I looked over, he was crying just like I was crying, and his tears were the same as my tears. And then Pastor Saylor said, we are all Newtown. Newtown didn't ask for this. Newtown didn't want this. In fact, none of you had heard of Newtown before the shootings. And so then he said, we are all Newtown. And that really began the movement, because when I got up there next, I turned to Pastor Sam Saylor and I said, and we are all Hartford. And we are all Baltimore and Philadelphia and Oakland and Camden and New York City. So, it's efforts like this, and thank you, Aaron, and HAC for Guns Down Life First Responses. Efforts like this where we all come together, we realize that it doesn't matter whether you're white, brown, or black. Gun violence doesn't discriminate, and gun violence can end up on all of our doors and communities throughout the nation unless we come together and work together to solve this problem. 30,000 deaths a year is not acceptable, and we need to do whatever we can to reduce the gun violence in this country.
Thank you. As I was asking you,
Team 26 has a number of partners, and that's pretty much what we do. I mean, we're here to empower our partners to become more active in grassroots efforts to reduce gun violence. For example, here in New York City, we've worked closely with Yvette Heidegger and OFA, with the National Action Network. In New Jersey and Pennsylvania, we work closely with Moms Command, and Ceasefire Pennsylvania and Ceasefire New Jersey. We work with faith-based communities, with the Washington National Cathedral. We also work very closely with our elected officials. And I think that's a piece that we really haven't talked about much today. But there are a bunch of different ways that we can reduce gun violence. Certainly everything that all of you are doing on the front lines in your communities is very important, but it's also important that we continue to pass legislation that reduces the flow of illegal guns into our communities. And so we work very closely with Senator Blumenthal, Senator Murphy, with Mike Thompson, who is the chair of the Gun Violence Task Force, with Congressman Esky, who is my congressman, who has been a warrior for on the gun violence prevention front and just got reelected. So that's another aspect I think is important. Sandy Hook Promise is creating thousands of promise communities across the United States to raise awareness, educate, and implement community-based tools and programs that protect children from gun violence. The Newtown Action Alliance is bringing in families from all over the country that have suffered from gun violence to a national vigil. We had one last year down at the Washington National Cathedral, partnering up with Faith United. There's another one which is going to be on December 11th, so I would encourage you all to go to the website, newtownaction.org, to find out more information about that.
Thank you.